Hey there, you guys. So earlier this year, I played Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and I had said in a first impressions video that I don't plan on reviewing this game, just because it's such a large game. There's so much going on, and I feel like because there's so much to this game, people can take a lot of different things from it. I don't think two people playing this game are gonna have the same experience, as well as I think they're gonna gravitate towards certain things. I think a game of this scale is definitely not necessarily tailored for a specific person, more so as it kind of throws a wide net out there, and then the person is going to gravitate towards whatever they feel like they like the most. So, with all that being said, I'm not going to give a review on whether or not I recommend Tears of the Kingdom, because obviously, I mean, it's the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. If you have a Nintendo Switch and you didn't pick this up, you probably have no plans on picking this up at this point, because I mean, this is the Zelda game for the Switch. Breath of the Wild was great. Tears of the Kingdom does a lot of things better. So if you have a Nintendo Switch, chances are you either already made up your mind to play this game, you already played it, or you have no intentions of ever playing it. So this video is not a review. It's not in service of trying to change your mind on this game. More so, I kind of just want to share some of my thoughts on this game. Very specifically, I have 5 strong opinions on The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Whether you guys disagree, agree, it doesn't really matter because this is my video, so sorry. If you guys disagree with me, feel free to make your own video or let me know in the comment section down below. With all that being said, do me a favor, you guys, like this video. If you guys like this style of video, do consider subscribing as it does help us a lot and we do appreciate it. Without wasting any more time, let's get into my 5 opinions, 5 takes, whatever you want to call it, on The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Okay, so just for reference, or just so you guys understand where I'm at in the game, I put roughly 50 hours into this game. I've completed 2 of the major dungeons as well as a good amount of shrines. I really lost track of the shrines. But yeah, ultimately, I would say I'm about halfway through the game, a little bit more than halfway through the game, depending on what you determine halfway to be in this game. But yeah, I put a good amount of hours into The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. For most games, 50 hours is enough to beat it or even beat it twice. But for the game this size and this large in scope, yeah, I clearly haven't done everything in the game. There's clearly so much left to do in the game and so much left to experience. With that being said, I do have a lot of opinions on this one. And the very first opinion is on combat. So when I think of combat, I don't necessarily think of The Legend of Zelda as like peak combat or anything like that. But I do say that it has good combat typically. I think Breath of the Wild was the first time I was ever a little iffy on the combat, but it wasn't too terrible at the time. In Tears of the Kingdom, I do think combat is god awful. I think it's horrendous. It's one of the things that I abhor doing. I never want to really fight enemies unless I need resources from them or something like that. But yeah, combat in this game is so tedious, mainly because there's so many menus. You also have the weapon degradation system, which I was fine with in Breath of the Wild. But in Tears of the Kingdom, because you have to go through so many menus just to select the weapon, just to select armor, every now and again, this is a game that if you're playing Tears of the Kingdom, you really want to just be playing Tears of the Kingdom, just because you want to make sure you're so in that mindset of combat and switching between Ultra Hand and stuff like that. Like you don't want to really forget how to do that. So every time I end up coming back to this game, I always forget what is every button and I have to press everything to figure out what to do, and it's just not intuitive by any means. I feel like when Nintendo was developing Tears of the Kingdom, they definitely had the idea of, the Ultra Hand, the Ascend ability, those type of abilities, more so than really understanding or coming up with an idea of how you're going to combat enemies. And I think they were really more, glued on the idea of traversing this world and really exploring this world, more so than fighting adversaries. So when you do end up combating enemies, it is so, again, just so horrendous. It's one of my least favorite things about this game. It is one of the things I think that really drag this game down in my opinion, just because I'm a person who really likes combat. Again, Legend of Zelda has never had the strongest combat, but it's always had good to great combat. Especially when I think of like Ocarina of Time for the N64. For that time, that was great combat systems. When you look at the Super Nintendo and you think you play games like A Link to the Past, amazing combat system for that day and age. Even Skyward Sword on a Nintendo Switch, I actually really like that system. Um, so just to like have combat be so terrible in this game, again, just my opinion, but it is just not fun, and it's one of the things that I actively avoid combating enemies just because I don't want to have to go through all the menus. I don't want to have to, switch weapons, especially if a weapon breaks. Usually I just pick up whatever I could find nearby, whether it be a broken arm or something like that. Definitely not the most optimal weapon choices that I go with, but I just go with whatever makes it quickest to grab a weapon and attack people with. And then I think just like the amount of times I like accidentally throw a sword or accidentally like you bring up Ultra Hand, it's just really really annoying and it bothers me. But yeah, my first opinion on this game is combat sucks. All right, my next opinion on this game, my next take is regarding the exploration of this game, and I think I'm mixed on the exploration. I feel like in part, yeah, I'm exploring a lot of places that I've kind of already explored before in Breath of the Wild. And yeah, they're different. They're definitely different enough to warrant this being a sequel. With that being said, it does lose a little bit of its luster when a lot of the exploration in Hyrule are more so like places that I've been to and I'm kind of just revisiting, than it is actually something new. Now, the big changes with exploration in this game come with like Ultra Hand ability and the Ascend ability, where Ultra Hand you can like build weapons, you can build vehicles, you can build all types of crazy stuff with them. Um, so that does add something different to the way you explore, as well as the Ascend ability, which I absolutely love. I love finding little places that I could ascend through, and just like making climbing a lot faster. So I think the Ascend ability is very very welcomed and damn near necessary in this game. When it comes to the Ultra Hand and like building vehicles and stuff like that, I don't think it's as practical as it sounds. I think because they are using the map from Breath of the Wild, because they are using that Hyrule, building vehicles that don't really traverse through this world. This world isn't really designed to be traversed via vehicle. There definitely runs to a lot of times where you just you can't go anywhere. You can build a car, but it's not really going to take you anywhere. Or sometimes you have the resources to build something that could take you very far. But because you get so sidetracked in this game, right? You want to stop by dungeons, you want to stop by shrines, you want to see what things are. You don't really make it that far with a vehicle that you kind of build. So I think as far as exploration and traversal, this game it's good. Obviously, it's amazing. Um, but it is a little awkward sometimes. They did also add the sky islands and as well as like the deep cavern areas, the deep like crevices, or I forgot specifically what they call them. I think they're just called the deep or whatever. Um, that do add extra layers to where you can explore. As far as the sky islands, a lot of them are very lackluster. Once you get up to a sky island, typically it'll have a couple resources or like a random loot box thing that you can like grab through, but nothing super wow inspiring. You don't typically, once you've seen one of the sky islands, you've kind of seen them all for the most part. So it doesn't really do much as far as adding variety. When it comes to like going down to the deep, going down to the underground, um, it was really really fun at first. It was one of my favorite things to do was to explore the underground. But I think after a while, again, it does lose its luster once you realize that there's not too much going on down there, or at least if there is, there's not too much coming at you that fast. So it does take a long time before you find something that does make it worth going down there. But overall, I don't think it adds enough to really change up exploration too much or warrant staying down there forever. Ultimately, exploration traversal in this game is amazing as it is, the Breath of the Wild system. It is a Breath of the Wild map, and it is fun, and the physics systems and all that works really, really well. But as far as like all the new additions, I do think they make it a little bit more awkward and not necessarily my favorite. Um, so personally, it's kind of hard because I don't think I necessarily preferred Breath of the Wild exploration just because this game has Ascend. Again, without the Ascend ability, I don't think the traversal and exploration would be that much better than Breath of the Wild, and it'd probably just be a little bit more awkward. But with the Ascend ability being like again such a standout ability, yeah, the game explores and traverses better than Breath of the Wild, but it's definitely not my favorite way to navigate an open world. So, second opinion, overall exploration and traversing in the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is just awkward. Okay, I think I said too much negative things. I think I gotta be a little bit more positive because again, overall, I do really enjoy this game. So my next opinion is something a little bit more positive, and that's this world. Even though it is the same map of Hyrule, there are a lot of things different as far as like the population, the people you run into. It is really really fun and really rewarding when you do run into somebody that you met in Breath of the Wild. As in Breath of the Wild, you kind of have this like you're meeting everyone for the first time, whereas in Tears of the Kingdom, it's kind of a reunion, right? You meet people that you've explored with in the past. You meet some new people added to the like mix, but definitely seeing everyone again felt like kind of a welcome home. As I put tons of hours into Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom kind of felt like a return to such a familiar place that just felt so heartwarming. I love the scenery, I love the environments, I love a lot of the places because, again, I already have so much memories with them. So I think overall, something that this sequel does really, really well is they reward you for running into some NPCs that you had met in the past. They reward you for like saying, "Hey, I remember talking to so and so. Let's go check up on them." You know, I want to go to Kakariko Village to see what's different, see who everyone is nowadays. You know, as this does take place years after the events of Breath of the Wild. So, my third opinion would be I really love the sequel nature to this game. I love the fact that they take advantage of the fact that this is a while after Breath of the Wild, and everyone has grown up. Everyone has matured a little bit. Everyone's seasoned. This is a world that knows Link and is used to Link and is aware of Link. So the interactions are very very different. Where again in Breath of the Wild it was more, you know, who is this guy, or figuring out who you guys are, retelling you who you are, versus in Tears of the Kingdom it's more like everyone knows you, you know you, and they're all kind of just like meeting you again. So again, it just feels more like a welcome home. Okay, my next opinion I think is, it's not negative or positive. I think it's just what it is. And I think that it's the fact that Nintendo really wanted to go above and beyond for the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. They wanted to make this game feel different, make this game feel, you know, more cinematic than anything they had done in the past. And I feel like a lot of this is prevalent with a lot of the set pieces. A lot of it's prevalent with a lot of the way you traverse places, and you know the way that they have, you know, some of the dungeons set up. A lot of it feels like cinematic, at least more cinematic than Nintendo has been in a really long time. And I do appreciate that. I do appreciate Nintendo trying to step it up and trying to make this game feel more grandeur than it is. With that being said, when you've played other games like God of War, when you played other games like Final Fantasy 16, when you've experienced such more grand experiences, it is hard to look at Tears of the Kingdom and say, wow, this is the most cinematic thing I've ever seen. With that being said, if you play primarily on Nintendo Switch, this is probably the most cinematic thing you've ever seen. And I think a lot of that does play into the fact that they are making this game more grand than Breath of the Wild, and they really want you to feel like this is a cut above. And it does definitely feel a cut above Breath of the Wild with the set pieces, with the bosses, with the enemies. A lot of it does feel more grand. So I guess that my, fourth opinion on The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, they did well by making this feel a cut above Breath of the Wild, and I really do appreciate that. My next opinion take, my final one on The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, is about the narrative, and this is a big gripe for me. I'm not someone who really thinks of Legend of Zelda games as being peak narrative, but they do have really good to serviceable narratives. And I feel like the big gripe with Breath of the Wild was there was no real good narrative. A lot of it is memories. A lot of it is a story that happened in the past, more so than a story that's unfolding before your eyes. And I feel like Tears of the Kingdom had such an idea that they could have like came up with. They have like the grounds for what is a really really good narrative, but I don't think they necessarily deliver on that part. I feel like it is definitely pushed to the wayside as far as a story goes. I think when developing this game, they came up with the ideas and the way you're going to traverse and a lot of the enemies prior to really discussing a narrative, and then afterwards just kind of try to shoehorn a narrative in to make it kind of make sense. But in this open world, it doesn't necessarily work that well, as there was, certain objectives that I would do that will spoil the story. That will mention things that I'm not supposed to know yet, like the fact that, spoiler alert, but Zelda is like being copied, and it's not the Zelda you're following isn't Zelda. I learned it a lot earlier than I think I was supposed to in a narrative, and it kind of ruined some other moments later on in the game. So I think overall, the narrative isn't really as smooth. It isn't really as awe-inspiring as you kind of want it to be. Obviously, I didn't beat the game yet, just because it's such a big game, and honestly, there's a lot of parts that kind of hinder my experience to want to keep going. Things like combat, things like I'm not a big fan of some of the dungeons. Like currently right now, I'm stuck at the water dungeon, and not necessarily stuck as like I can't figure it out. More so stuck as I don't really want to do it, and I think that's the biggest problem that's stopping me from completing this game to figure out the narrative at the end. Is I don't like the story too much. I don't like the dungeons too much. I don't like a lot of the main objective things too much, to the point where it doesn't really compel me to want to go and beat the game. The thing I really loved about this game was, the inventiveness, was the exploration, was the way you can kind of like maneuver the world and play with the physics and revisit places that I've been to in Breath of the Wild. But when it came to actually completing the main objective, I struggled hard to try to figure out reasons why I would want to, just because I wasn't having a good time. So I guess my final take on this game, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, is that the main objective, the narrative, the story beats don't really hit the way I would like. And I feel like after Breath of the Wild, I would think they would have, picked it up a little bit, tried a little harder. And I don't think they necessarily hit the mark on those points. Anyways, you guys, those are my 5 opinions, spicy takes, cold takes, whatever you guys want to call them. Again, doesn't really matter in my opinion. If you guys agree, disagree, or you think I'm ugly, let me know down below in the comment section, as that's what it's there for. With all that being said, I will see you guys on the next video. Remember to go out there, have fun, play some games, and enjoy your day.